Please note that the content of this episode has explicit language and is not suitable for underage listeners. Hi, I'm CJ, and I've been a phone sex operator for 23 years. Let's get started. Hello. I was driving the other morning, and I got to thinking I really want to tell you a little bit about my dating life. Well, not necessarily my dating life, but the dilemma I've had for several years, and it's really been a serious one. So I've never been married, and I've dated a lot. The dilemma is, do I tell someone I do this as a second job or not? This meaning phone sex. You might think that is an easy answer, but it never has been. When I started doing this, I worked at a company and I told somebody there, and they didn't understand it. It was a man. He didn't understand why men would call a phone line. He thought it was stupid. I don't think he looked at me in a different way, but he just didn't get it. Of course, he understood strip clubs, but he didn't get phone sex, or webcam for that matter. Okay, so he didn't get it. Next. So I began to think when I first started doing this, do I tell men or don't I? And for a while I didn't, and it was no big deal. Then I began to test the waters, and I thought, depending upon the questions the guys asked about me, maybe I should tell them. Why? I don't know. I felt like I needed to be honest, but then I wanted to see a man's reaction, and if they acted all horned up and like an asshole, they would quickly show me who they were and I could move on. I think that is really what I wanted to see, how they would react. So I told a date. This was a very long time ago. We were at a restaurant sitting across from each other, and I told him. Something came up. I didn't just blurt it out, and he looked at me differently and wanted to know if we could go back to my place and have sex. I had known him for about an hour and a half, and I wasn't feeling it way before I told him. I said, no, that's not happening. We are not having sex. I was kind of taken aback and thought maybe it was a bad idea to tell him. That was probably in 2002 and 2003, so I don't know if people were different back then or if they're all the same, but that was an interesting response to, hey, I'm a phone actress. He thought since that is what I did, it would be easy to get me in the sack. Wrong. Doesn't make me a whore. It doesn't make me easy, and like I said, I wasn't feeling it anyway on the date, so that was a test. So I didn't tell guys for a while, then I went back to telling men, and they immediately want a free phone sex session. No, nothing's free. So if I tell them on the phone they want to have phone sex, no. When I talk to the guys on the phone before I met them, oftentimes I get, oh, you have a nice voice. I used to say thank you, and then over time I would say, I've heard that before, and they'd say, oh yeah? And then I would tell them I do phone sex, and they would want a free session, so I stopped saying that, and I just said, oh, thank you. The classic one was not too long ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, where I was talking to someone and we were going to meet. We had a date set up. He called me a few days before the date, and he said that he was going to be passing by where I live. I had told him on one of our calls that I do phone sex, and he seemed respectful about it and didn't make a big deal about it. And then he said verbatim, can I come over and eat your pussy before I head on to my meeting? Now, that could just have been him and not the whole phone sex thing, so that could be just him and have nothing to do with me doing phone sex, but I chalked it up to that. I said, no, we will just keep our date. My friends were appalled. They couldn't believe I was even entertaining the fact of meeting him. I was now curious. So I did actually meet this guy later on our regularly scheduled date. You know, this isn't the forum, I get it, but I'll tell you, some guys sure don't dress up. He came in sweatpants and flip-flops. Anyway, he ordered us oysters and other things, and I knew exactly what he was trying to do. It didn't work. Surprise. He walked me to my car, gave me a kiss, and it was like kissing a sponge. It was icky. Didn't curl my toes, just made me want to run away. So that's the end of that one. I still don't know if it's a good idea or not. However, the girl in me always wants to test the guy to see their reaction, and if it doesn't faze them, then I feel good about them. If it does faze them, then I have to gauge their reaction. I don't mind some type of reaction, but don't turn into a horny 15-year-old. When you're just meeting someone for the first or second time, thinking that I'm just going to jump into bed with them or give them a freebie because of being a phone actress, they've got another thing coming to them even at my age. I dated someone who really wanted me to quit and said that they would support me. I didn't like him enough to quit. Isn't that mean? But it was true. And so I didn't, and we didn't last very long just because of other things, mostly his personality and not this. So to give it up for someone really doesn't sit well with me. I would like to know what your thoughts are on telling someone early on. I know it could just be one date, maybe two, so there's no point in saying anything. But then I've also been told, why didn't you tell me sooner? So it can go both ways. I guess it depends on the person. But I'd like to know your thoughts. If you would like to share them with me, email me at phonesexqueen1@gmail.com. Doing this in dating isn't always easy, but I've said I'm not giving this up for anyone unless there is a reason to, and it has to be a good reason. I haven't had that reason yet, by the way, but I'm waiting. Not too long. I'm not waiting too much. I'd like to revisit one of my callers. I have a man who's in his 70s who calls me and tells me he misses me or that he loves me. And like I've said previously, that makes me feel uncomfortable. He called me again recently and said he could not sleep. He wanted to talk with me because he missed me. I asked how he was, and he said he had cancer and that it was stage 1. So he was thankful for that. I felt horrible. It made me sad. So we talked about an upcoming trip he had, which made me quite happy for him as he was going to see his family. He is one that repeats himself over and over, how much I mean to him and how much he loves me and misses me. It tears me up. I feel so bad, but it's part of the job. My heart breaks a little every time I talk to him. So I recently went somewhere with a bunch of friends, and there were some men there. Some I knew, some I didn't. And someone said to my group of friends, I know one of you does something unique. And he kind of smiled. And I raised my hand and I said, that's me. And he couldn't believe that I admitted it. And he was kind of surprised because he knew what it was. He just didn't want to say it. That goes back to the last podcast where I said, do I shout it out and tell everybody? No, but I don't shy away from it either. Now that I have a podcast, I want everyone to know. I want everyone to know what I do. And I also want them to listen to the podcast because I find it to be interesting and a little shocking, I guess. So when this guy asked if it was true, I said, absolutely, it's true. He got a little shy and a little quiet. The guy that told him was also there, and he thinks I am amazing and wonderful. And I think that's funny, but sometimes I think I'm amazing as well. So I just laugh. I can't help myself. Something happened recently that has never happened before. I have a semi-regular who I've mentioned on here, but I'm not going to mention him in this particular instance. He's called other women, not just me. Some people are monogamous, if you will, and only talk to one phone sex operator at a time. And then there are other people who call different women for different reasons. I recently found that out. I've never thought that I was the sole person that they would talk to because I'm not on all the time. But I've been told that some people call only one person and some people call multiple people. Anyway, so this guy writes to me and says, could you please write to this other phone sex operator and please have her unblock me because I want to talk to her. He was so bothered by it. If he wasn't a regular, I wouldn't have done it, but I did. It's funny. These guys think we all sit around and we're all friends, all the phone sex operators, that we talk to each other and commiserate. But I don't know one single person who works on the platform where I work, and I've never been friends with any phone sex operator ever. But anyway, I write to her. She writes me back saying she's blocked him because he wants her to read stories and he's annoying, and don't write me back again, and then blocks me. I didn't harass her. I just asked a question. He got so hurt. I felt really badly for him because I wanted him to be able to, well, first of all, I wanted to be able to be the one to get him unblocked. I wanted to be his hero, but that didn't happen. And in turn, I got blocked, which is fine. I don't care. Even the one person that I wanted to block, I've never blocked. So we've had, I've told you that before. So I feel really bad, and I know some of these girls, I've told you this before, some of these girls are just not nice. So it is what it is. I'm blocked, he's blocked, it's a bummer, and there's nothing that can be done about it. Oh, well, I tried. A friend of mine reminded me of a caller I had years ago. Someone called me and said he wanted to start to do ass play on himself. He wanted to try it. He wasn't sure where to start. He was very curious. I asked him if he had any toys. He said no. I asked if he had a carrot or a cucumber. He said no. I was racking my brain and I came up with a candlestick, and he said he did have one of those. You got to get creative. I had him put it in his ass, and he said he was standing in front of a mirror. Then it got quiet. And he said, uh-oh, the candle broke. It looks like I have a tampon hanging out my ass. We both laughed a little. He said it felt so good. And he was moving it in and out, and he was happy. And he said he was going to go get a toy, go to the toy store, and call me back. But he never did. That day made him very happy. Another guy called around the same time wanting the same thing, but he didn't have anything in his house. Nothing. So I told him to call me after he went to the adult toy store. Nope, he wanted to do it now. So he looked around his house and he grabbed a hammer and put the handle up his ass. And he claimed that he loved it. I just say if there's a will, there's a way. You'll do anything if you feel desperate enough, and who am I to judge? So he played with that hammer, and all I kept thinking was, I hope it wasn't a wood handle. The splinters could be painful. Anyway, several years ago, there was a theme, which means lots of different people would call with the same request. That request was often in the first 10 years or so. I have not had this request at all, probably in the last 12 years or so. The request was, would I kick a guy in the balls for money? Would I meet them and kick them in the nuts? I would get offered a lot of money to do this. Would I do it? Would I do it? Please do it. Will you do it? Will you do it? And my answer was always no. They would beg me, and I would say no. They wanted a pretty girl to come and kick them in the balls. It's funny because when I talk to my girlfriends, they would say, why? Yeah, why? Why aren't you doing it? What's the problem? What's your problem? And I'd say, I don't want to do it. And they'd go, well, you get out your aggressions. I just couldn't imagine doing it. Inflicting pain, even though the guy wanted it, I could not do it. These would start out as a phone sex call, and they would really want me to kick them in the nuts. And most of the guys that called wanted it in person. They would pay for the flight. They would pay for me to do it. I never understood that, and I still don't. Actually, other than the fact that they think they deserve it, I don't know, makes no sense to me. I don't understand inflicting harm on someone. I'm not against it. I just don't do it. For me, I don't understand the pleasure of being the receiver or the giver. Even though back then I recall someone explaining it to me, I can't articulate that to you because I don't remember what they said. But I remember someone explaining it, and I still couldn't wrap my head around it at the time. It was very strange to get multiple calls about this over and over and over again. Not just like one day and that's it, or a week and that's it. It was for quite a while, and then they dropped off. I think that I always call it a fad. Whatever it is, that theme fad is over. At least they don't call me anymore. I think maybe now they go on video and do it, but that was a tough one for me. Because as you know, I've said it before, I don't like saying no to people when talking during my side gig. I want to make everybody happy. I want to do what they want me to do, but to a point, of course. That probably made a few of you squirm. I'm sorry. It's just so different. Let's call it different. Okay, so the question this week is, you must have heard everything, and do you still get surprised? Well, yeah. My answer is that is just when I think I've heard everything, I hear something that I've never heard before, and I'm super surprised. And trust me, I have not heard everything. I know that. I know I've heard a lot. But every once in a while, I get surprised, and then I can actually say I have not heard everything. Because people will call and say, I bet you've heard everything. And my response is, no, I know I haven't. And that would be really boring if I had heard everything, because then it would be the same old thing day in and day out. And I've said before, people do call with the same fantasy. Sometimes it's every day, multiple times a week, and I can say that I do sometimes get bored, but there will be that one gem where it's brand new and I've never heard it before, and that will make my day. Here's a good example. Somebody asked if I would help them with a G-spot orgasm. Now, it was 12:30 at night. I had no business being logged in. I was super tired, and I did not think I had heard of that before. I told him that I had not been asked that before. No one's ever requested it. I didn't know what it was, and he'd be better off talking to someone else. I really just wanted to go to sleep. I knew it was a prostate gland massage, but I was too tired and didn't want to deal with it. No one had asked me for that before, so it was new to me, but I could have done it. I just didn't want to. I wasn't in the mood. So I do hear things that I'm not aware of or that surprise me. It certainly is never dull. But, I have to learn when to log off so that I don't have to say no to these people. So that's all for now. Thank you for listening to Secrets from a Phone Sex Queen, everything you always wanted to know about phone sex and more. And don't forget to please, please, please email me your questions, your comments at phonesexqueen1@gmail.com. You can follow me on Instagram at phonequeen1 and at Facebook at CJCJ. Until next time, stay sexy.